Before we begin, take a breath. This channel isn't just about English. It's about awakening your voice. Subscribe now. And together, let's learn the language that lives in silence. When was the last time you truly listened? Not to the words someone said, but to the pauses between them. The moment when their lips stop moving, but their eyes still speak, that is the place where silence begins. And silence speaks louder than sound ever can. Most people fear silence. They fill every second with noise, messages, calls, music, anything, just to escape that quiet moment when thoughts begin to echo. But the truth is, silence is not empty. It's full of meaning, full of lessons your words can't teach you. Today, we'll learn English through silence. The unspoken phrases, the invisible emotions, the quiet power that lives behind every word. When you say nothing, what do you really say? Let's start from the beginning. The ancient story of a teacher who never spoke a word. They say, long ago, there was a man who walked from village to village, followed by crowds hungry for wisdom. But when he stood before them, he said, nothing. He would sit under a tree, close his eyes, and let the wind speak through him. The villagers would whisper, "What kind of teacher doesn't teach?" But one day, a young boy asked, "Why do you never speak?" The old man smiled and replied, "Because words are only half the truth. The rest is silence." That line, "the rest is silence," is one of the most powerful lessons in English. And in life, you see, when you master English, you're not just learning grammar or vocabulary. You're learning to connect emotion to sound and sound to silence. Think about it. Every sentence you speak in English is built around pauses. I'm proud of you. Pause. Really proud. That small silence between the two lines is not a mistake. It's emotion. It's what makes your words alive. We call this the power of the pause. It's not in grammar books. But every great speaker, every storyteller, every poet uses it to give meaning to words. So, what does silence teach you about English? Let's break it down, not like a classroom, but like a mirror reflecting who you are. When you pause before speaking, you learn to listen, not just to others, but to yourself. You begin to notice intonation, the melody of English. You start to feel when a word needs weight and when it needs breath. That's how emotion hides inside language. That's why fluent speakers don't just speak English, they flow with it. Imagine two people. One speaks fast, filling every silence. The other speaks slow, calm, deliberate. Who do you trust more? Usually it's the one who pauses, because silence creates space, and space creates trust. That's why English expressions like, "Let's take a moment," "In the quiet of the night," "Silence speaks volumes," exist. They remind us that silence is not absence, it's presence. Let's learn a few expressions from silence itself. Hold your tongue. It means to stop yourself from speaking. Example, she wanted to reply, but she held her tongue. Dead silence, when everything becomes completely quiet. Example, after the explosion, there was dead silence. Break the silence, to speak after a quiet moment. Example, he finally broke the silence with a whisper. Silence is golden, meaning sometimes it's better to say nothing. Example, in arguments, silence is golden. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you're standing in front of someone you care about deeply. No words, just eyes. The silence between you is powerful, emotional, unspoken. That's real communication. That's emotional fluency. When you can feel silence, you understand English not just with your mind, but with your heart. The problem with most learners is that they chase speed. How fast can I speak? How many words can I learn per day? But language isn't a race, it's rhythm. It's like music. Without pauses, it's just noise. Let's take an example. Imagine the sentence, "I love you." Now say it 3 ways. Fast. I love you. Rushed. Emotionless. Normal. I love you. Balanced. Calm. With silence. I love you. Soft, real, powerful. The third one connects. That pause before love gives it weight, honesty. And that's the power of silence. It teaches timing, emotion, depth. There's another truth hidden inside this. Silence is also a mirror of confidence. Insecure people overtalk. Confident people are calm in silence. Even in English, when you pause, you show you're in control of your words. You don't fear silence, you use it. Try it next time you speak. When someone asks you a question in English, pause before answering. You'll sound wiser, clearer, more fluent, because silence gives your words gravity. That's what great communicators do. That's what fluent thinkers sound like. You know, silence also teaches listening. And listening is the real secret of learning any language. Every great speaker was first a great listener. When you listen deeply, you catch the rhythm, the melody, the emotion hiding between syllables. That's why you should never rush to reply. Instead, listen to the sound of words, the music of meaning. When you hear someone say, "I'm fine," pause, because maybe they're not. Sometimes silence says, "Help me." That's emotional English, the kind you'll never find in textbooks. So let me teach you one more phrase. Read between the lines. It means to understand the hidden message, the emotion that isn't spoken directly. When you start reading between lines, you start understanding the language of silence. Now imagine your life like a sentence. Every word is a moment, every pause is a lesson, and the silence between moments, that's where growth happens. Because when life goes quiet, that's when your heart speaks. And what it says is who you really are. The sound of silence is not the absence of words. It is the space where meaning breathes. You notice it when you walk at dawn. The city still half asleep, no horns, no voices, only the heartbeat of your footsteps. In that moment, you understand what English calls peace and quiet. Two small words that describe an entire world of calm. When learners hear quiet, they think of no noise. But peace and quiet means more. It means the silence inside you is finally still. That's the silence where language starts to grow. Because the first step to thinking in English is not speaking at all. It's sitting with the language, hearing it move through your thoughts like wind through trees. Try this. Close your eyes and whisper a single English word, hope. Then stop. Don't repeat it. Let the echo of that word live in the silence after it. That echo is your brain learning rhythm. That's how memory bonds with feeling. Every fluent speaker has trained in that invisible classroom. They just didn't know they were doing it. When they paused to remember a word, their brain wasn't failing. It was shaping meaning in the quiet. Silence, again, was teaching them. Silence also connects people. In conversation, the moments between words are like bridges. They allow understanding to cross. In English, we say, let it sink in. It means, give silence time to work. After a friend tells you something painful, you don't rush to reply. You let silence hold the weight. That's empathy. That's fluent humanity. So, to learn English, you must learn this art of waiting. Listen not only for what people say, but for what they cannot say. The unsaid often carries the real story. Now let's explore the grammar of quiet, a side of English most teachers never touch. When you pause before a clause, you create suspense. English uses punctuation to mark those silences, a comma, a dash, 3 dots. Those symbols are visual pauses. They guide breath, emotion, rhythm. Read this aloud. Sometimes, the quietest voice is the one that changes everything. Feel that small hesitation after sometimes? That's written silence. It builds feeling before the final truth. Lands, writers call this timing. Speakers call it delivery. But both are just forms of silence made visible. And here's something most language learners never realize. When you master silence, you start sounding natural. Native speakers don't speak non-stop. They use fillers, pauses, sighs, breath. They let thoughts unfold slowly. Next time you watch an English interview, notice how often speakers stop mid-sentence. Not because they forgot a word, but because they're shaping thought in real time. Those seconds of quiet are authentic. If you copy them, your speech begins to sound real too. Alive, human, confident. That's the secret fluency nobody talks about. A teacher once told his class, The moment you stop talking, you start hearing. No one understood him then. Years later, his students realized that fluency isn't how many words you know, it's how deeply you can feel a single one. Silence sharpens that depth. It turns hearing into listening, listening into understanding, and understanding into connection. When you listen in English, listen with your whole body. Watch the speaker's eyes, their hands, the breath before a sentence. Each pause tells you something the words can't. That's how you read subtext, the real meaning hidden underneath. A friend might say, "I'm fine." But if the silence after that line stretches too long, English teaches you to hear the truth. They're not fine. You've just translated emotion, not grammar. This is what separates a speaker from a communicator. Words inform. Silence transforms. To feel that power, try this simple practice. When you study new vocabulary, don't rush to repeat it. Read the word, then stop. Let 3 seconds of stillness pass. Imagine where that word belongs in your life. If it's freedom, see yourself standing somewhere wide and open. If it's forgive, see someone smiling through tears. That quiet visualization engraves meaning deeper than any flashcard. Silence isn't a break from learning. It's the part where learning settles in. In relationships, silence builds trust the same way it builds fluency. When you're comfortable being quiet with someone, it means you no longer fear being misunderstood. You trust that presence itself communicates. English captures this feeling in idioms like, "We sat in comfortable silence." "Words failed me." Both show that stillness can be love in disguise. So when you speak English, don't just focus on vocabulary, focus on vulnerability. Let pauses show that you're human. Let the listener breathe with you. That's how your English begins to sound alive, honest, magnetic. In the digital world, we've forgotten that quiet moments even exist. People type faster, speak louder, scroll endlessly. But your mind, just like language, needs rhythm, sound and rest, words and space. The same way music needs rests between notes, English needs silence between thoughts. That rhythm gives your speech its heartbeat. Without it, even perfect grammar feels lifeless. So when you record, perform, or speak publicly, learn to own the pause. Look at your audience. Let the quiet stretch just long enough for your next sentence to land like a wave returning to shore. That's presence. That's power. Sometimes the hardest part of any journey, whether it's mastering English or mastering yourself, is to stop trying so hard. Silence gives you that rest. It whispers, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be real. And that's the hidden lesson. Silence doesn't demand performance. It only asks for honesty. When you speak from that space, your accent softens. Your words carry warmth instead of worry. That's the moment English becomes yours. They say every artist paints with silence first. Before a single word, a single brushstroke, there is a pause, a breath, a stillness. That is where creativity is born. The same is true for language. Before you speak English, before you even think of the words, there is that tiny spark of quiet intention, the feeling that something wants to be said. If you listen closely, silence gives it form. That is how writers find their first line, how poets find rhythm, how you can find your voice. When you start thinking in English, don't imagine a machine translating your native language. Instead, imagine silence building a bridge inside your mind. Words rise slowly, naturally, without force. Try this exercise. Sit alone. No background music, no phone. Take one deep breath, and in that stillness, ask yourself a question. What am I feeling right now? Wait, don't answer instantly. Let silence form your reply. When the words come, say them in English. They'll sound clearer, simpler, more honest. Because silence trims the unnecessary. It edits your thoughts before they become sentences. It teaches you minimalism in expression. That's why fluent speakers sound effortless. They've learned what not to say. There's a phrase in English, less is more. You've heard it before, maybe about design or writing. But it's really about silence. Because silence is less, yet it gives you more. More clarity, more beauty, more truth. The greatest speeches in history all use silence as their secret weapon. Martin Luther King Jr. would pause before his most powerful lines. He understood that silence turns a statement into a revelation. Every pause he made let millions breathe with him. And that's how his words reached hearts, not just ears. So when you speak English, remember, every pause is a chance to let your message land. Every moment of silence says, "I'm not rushing. My words matter." Silence also unlocks creativity because it removes fear. Noise makes you compare yourself. Silence makes you meet yourself. And the more you meet yourself, the more original your thoughts become. When your mind is quiet, ideas start whispering. They rise softly like dawnlight through a curtain. They tell stories you didn't know you had inside you, stories that can only exist in English once you trust that inner voice. Many learners say, "I think in my native language first." That's okay. But the real goal is to think in feeling. And silence is the language of feeling. When you connect feelings to English words, your sentences stop sounding translated. They start sounding alive. Here's another hidden truth. Silence is the birthplace of confidence. When you pause before answering, you tell your brain, "I am in control." You stop reacting. You start creating. You're not rushing to prove you know English. You're using silence to build presence, and presence is the foundation of power. So the next time you join a conversation in English, don't fear the gaps. When someone finishes speaking, wait one heartbeat before replying. That heartbeat gives you authority. That heartbeat tells others you're listening. That heartbeat is silence turning into mastery. Let's explore a few expressions that reflect this power of quiet. In the still of the night means a peaceful moment when the world sleeps. Example: in the still of the night, she finally understood her dream. Hold that thought means pause your idea for a moment, keep it safe. Example: hold that thought, I'll come back to it. A pregnant pause means silence filled with expectation or emotion. Example: there was a pregnant pause before he said, "I'm sorry." Each one shows that silence in English is not emptiness, it's emotion, energy, anticipation. Now, imagine your mind as a room filled with echoes. Every memory, every thought bouncing around. When you go silent, you don't lose the echoes. You begin to hear them clearly. That's when creativity begins. That's when you can write, think, or speak English in your own style. Because creativity isn't noise, it's clarity. So when inspiration hides, don't force yourself to create. Be still. Let silence write the first draft. When words return, they'll come purified. There's a moment at the end of every storm when the air suddenly stills. That pause isn't empty. It's renewal. Silence has done its work, washing, softening, preparing the world to begin again. That's what happens inside you, too. When you stop filling every second with noise, English stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like a place where you can breathe. You begin to notice the small things, the hush between syllables, the comfort of a word landing exactly where it belongs. That's fluency, not perfection, but peace. Think of every challenge you faced while learning, the frustration, the mistakes, the moments you wanted to give up. Silence turns each of those moments into teachers. When you pause after a failure, you hear the quiet question beneath it. What did this teach me? That's growth speaking softly. In English, we have the phrase, "a moment of clarity." It means the instant when confusion dissolves and truth stands naked. Clarity never shouts. It whispers. You only hear it when you stop talking long enough to listen. Silence also heals the fear of judgment. Most people fear speaking English because they imagine the noise of others, the laughter, the criticism, the echoes of "you're not good enough." But silence reminds you, those voices live only in your head. When you breathe into quiet, they fade. And then, from the calm, a smaller, kinder voice appears. You're learning. You're growing. Keep going. That voice is your true teacher. So, when you study, give yourself small islands of silence. After reading a line, close your eyes. Repeat it inside your mind, not aloud. Feel the rhythm of the sentence travel through your breath. That's where memory and meaning meet. The deeper you go, the more you realize. Silence isn't the opposite of communication. It is communication. Every great conversation ends with a moment of quiet, the shared understanding that no more words are needed. That is fluency beyond vocabulary. That is connection beyond grammar. In those moments, you're not just speaking English. You're speaking humanity. When the camera fades and the world turns quiet again, remember this. Every pause in your journey is still progress. Every silence is a lesson waiting to be heard. Every breath you take before a sentence is courage disguised as calm. So as you walk through the noise of life, carry this language of silence with you. Use it when words fail. Use it when emotions overflow. Use it when you need to remind yourself that understanding doesn't always require sound. Because sometimes, the most fluent thing you can ever say is nothing at all. After the words fade, what remains? A heartbeat, a breath. A feeling you can't translate but somehow understand. That's the purest English there is. The kind that lives beyond grammar, beyond accent, beyond doubt. Because language isn't only something you speak, it's something you become. And silence is what shapes that becoming. When you pause before a word, you invite meaning to join you. When you end a sentence with quiet, you let truth echo longer than sound. That echo is what people remember. So the next time you speak English, in class, online, or in your thoughts, don't chase perfection. Chase presence. Let each word arrive slowly, like ripples spreading on still water. Let silence do what it always does. Turn ordinary words into moments of connection. You see, the journey of learning English isn't about collecting words. It's about discovering yourself through them. Every new word you learn is a window. Every pause you take is the light that enters through it. And when the light and window meet, that's understanding. That's the real fluency you've been searching for. Silence will always be your teacher. Whenever the noise of doubt grows too loud, whenever comparison steals your joy, come back to the quiet. Read a line, breathe once. Let the pause between breaths remind you that progress doesn't shout. It whispers. If you can hear that whisper, you're already on the right path. When the story ends, silence returns. But this silence isn't empty anymore. It's full of meaning, full of everything you've just heard. It carries the weight of every pause, every breath, every thought that never needed words. You close your eyes for a moment and realize something simple. You've been learning English all along, not just through speaking, but through feeling. Every emotion you couldn't name was a lesson. Every quiet night you repeated a phrase in your mind was practice. Every time you listened without rushing to reply, you were building understanding far deeper than vocabulary. That's what no textbook ever tells you. Fluency begins in silence. There's a beauty in stillness that no noise can replace. It's where confidence grows, quietly, slowly, but surely. And when the time comes to speak, your words don't stumble out of fear. They flow from peace. So when you speak next time, don't just talk. Feel your words. Let them travel through your breath. Let them rest in the pauses. Let them live in the silence between sounds. Because that silence is your rhythm. It's your signature. It's what makes your English yours. And now, as this story fades, I want you to remember one thing. You don't need to be perfect to be understood. You just need to be present. Even when you say nothing, your silence tells your story. It says, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm learning. That's what the world really hears. If this story touched you, don't let it end here. Take this silence with you, into your words, your lessons, your life. And when you're ready, subscribe, not just to this channel, but to your own growth, because silence has already begun teaching you. Now it's time to keep listening.